Welcome, welcome. I'm Elizabeth Inman, and I'm so excited that you're here on this webinar, the 7 Surprises of Federal Retirement. So kind of just settle in, let's just pick up a cup of coffee, and let's get down to some real business in all of this environment of the early outs, of the rifts, am I going to have my job? Am I not going to have my job? And let's talk some serious business. So first of all, let's start off with, well, who are you? Who are you, Elizabeth? Well, I'm Elizabeth Inman, and I myself retired from the federal government several years ago. I went through a RIF or two myself, went through an early out or two myself, and even after my retirement, being a federal benefit coordinator for folks that work in the federal government, have seen several more early outs and RIFs through the years, but never anything like what we're seeing today. So hold on, it's a roller coaster, but we're going to make this ride a whole lot smoother as we take off on our roadmap to success for federal retirement. That's what we're going to do today. So I spent about 24 years in the federal government, worked my way up, had 1,600 employees at one point in time in my career, worked in 4 different states, had it made. Great career. I loved every minute from the moment I got hired until the very last day of my career. I loved every minute of it. And then because of what happened with the retirement paperwork, what happened with my benefits, the surprises that came up and hit me right between the eyes, I decided to start a new career, a second business. That's Federal Employee Benefit Coordinators, FEBCnow.com. And it has been the most rewarding thing I've ever done. We're here to help take away the surprises so that you're not surprised. Even in this environment of nothing but surprises, we want to try to take away that, oh my goodness, I wasn't expecting that kind of feeling from you. We want to take away and subside as much as of the fear that is possible. We may not be able to get rid of all of your fear, but I'm telling you what, education is power, and we're going to share a lot of education with you through this webinar. So now that you're on this webinar, there's literally hundreds of you out there. You're wondering, what do I expect? What can I expect from this? Well, you can expect one thing. This is going to be simple, easy, painless for you. And this is going to give you information that's going to chase away a whole lot of your fears. It's going to be very specific, and it's going to be to the point. Information that you need to make your decisions in this new environment we find ourselves with, VERAs and RIFs and all of the early outs and things that are going on. So we want to put information in your hands, and then it's going to be super simple at the end. We're going to give you an opportunity to click a button, fill out a roadmap to success by just answering just a few simple questions. And really and truly, that's all there is to it. So once again, as I've been saying, you've found yourself at this crossroad needing information, but you haven't had any of the foundation underneath this roadmap to help you get to your destination of a successful retirement. So let's get started with that. We're going to talk about some specific things that all of you, quite frankly, have wished you've known before you got to this point. Unfortunately, your timeline got moved up on you. You had no control over your timeline, not in today's environment. So don't beat yourself up. Just settle in. Got your pencil and paper ready? Because I'm going to cover a lot of information with you. For instance, surprise number 1. Do you know how many beneficiary forms you need as a federal employee or as a federal retiree? Some of you do, but there's a lot of you that do not. There's some of you that could name off some easy ones like life insurance, FEGLI. Yes, indeed, you need to have a beneficiary arrangement on file for your FEGLI, Federal Employees Group Life Insurance. That's the easy one. How about your retirement funds? Every 2 weeks, they've been taking money out of your check and into the retirement fund. If you're FERS, it comes out of your check, goes into the FERS retirement fund. If you're civil service, it's been coming out of your check and going into the civil service retirement fund. That's your money that you've already paid taxes on that is in a fund that belongs to you. If something happens to you, you don't want your wife or your husband or your kids to have to wait over a year to get it because you didn't have beneficiaries on file. You want these beneficiaries on file to make it as simple and as easy for your loved ones as possible in the event something happens prematurely to you. So FEGLI is a beneficiary form that's required. Your retirement plan requires a beneficiary form, and then the TSP requires a beneficiary form. Now, we've all lived through the great restructuring of TSP of 2022 when they lost, I heard numbers of up to 80% of the beneficiaries, that it was dropped out of the system when they migrated from one system to another system. Now, hopefully most of that has been corrected. However, I've already had 3 people in the last week in my office that was still locked out of their account. How does that feel, being locked out of your account? Because they didn't know that there had been a restructure. They didn't know there had been changes made. And guess what? They did not have beneficiaries on file. So we had to go in. The TSP3, which is the TSP beneficiary form, is now online, and you log into your tsp.gov website, and right up the top right-hand side, manage your beneficiaries. That's where you take care of that one. And the fourth and final one is the beneficiary that not many people are aware of, and it is unpaid compensation. What is unpaid compensation? Well, you work 6 days in the pay period. You're supposed to get paid for that, right? And let's say, I don't know, something happened. You had a terrible accident and we lost you. Those 6 days goes to your beneficiaries, but not just the 6 days of unpaid compensation. What about that annual leave balance that you've been working so hard to build up for retirement? You want to make sure that that annual leave is also designated to go to the beneficiary of your choice. So those are the 4 beneficiary forms that you need to have on file as a federal or postal employee. One of the reasons I am so passionate about surprise number 1, and that's your beneficiaries, making sure that you have them and they're updated and they're current, is early on in this second career that I have, being a federal benefit coordinator, I got a phone call from a gentleman. He and his wife both worked for the federal government. They were on a second marriage. They had off days together, so they had had breakfast together. She went out to her patio to water the plants, and he found her dead out on the patio. Very young, early 50s. Early 50s. Total surprise. She'd never been sick. And then as we processed through the paperwork, because the paperwork's about this thick when something like that happens, as we processed through the paperwork, lo and behold, she had never updated her beneficiaries, and the ex-husband got everything. Everything. I sat there at the table with that man, and my heart went out to him. That is not what you want to have happen. You need to make sure you've got the right beneficiaries and it's filled out the way you want it. And this should be reviewed about every 5 years, and we can help you do that. The second surprise that I want you to be fully prepared for is surviving spouse benefits. Now, there's surviving spouse benefits while you're working that is different than surviving spouse benefits once you're retired. So while you're working, you have surviving spouse benefits that's available to your spouse only should something happen to you. Things such as, it's not exactly a death benefit of your salary, but it's going to be very, very close to your salary. That's a lump sum that's paid out to your spouse if something happens to you while you're working. And then depending on where you are in your career, how many years of service you have, your spouse is very likely to be entitled to a lifetime pension as a surviving spouse of yours while you're working if something happens to you. Now let's talk about, though, retirement, because this is all about your roadmap to success for your federal retirement, right? So once you retire and you do the paperwork, you have a decision to make, and it's one of the biggest decisions that you'll make in the whole retirement process if you're married, and that is, do I leave my spouse a portion or all of the benefit of a surviving spouse pension if something happens to me first? This happens to be tied to your spouse's ability to keep your health insurance if you're the first one to pass away. So this is a very critical decision that you need to make sure you've got all of the information gathered together before you get ready to sit down and fill out the paperwork. Because quite frankly, the questions on the paperwork are not that easy to understand. I've been doing this as a benefit coordinator for 15 years, and I still take my time and read those questions very thoroughly when I'm helping somebody fill out their retirement paperwork. Big, big decision, because whether or not your spouse can keep your federal employee health benefit plan or your postal service health benefit plan is tied to which one of those 5 boxes did you check when you retired. So surviving spouse benefits is a biggie that you want to make sure you have all of your questions answered about surviving spouse benefit. You know, here at Federal Employee Benefit Coordinators, we really, really do care. We care, and it's not a slogan. That's not a salesman-y. We really do care. First of all, we're federal employees drawing a pension that had to make all the same decisions that you've had to make. But I'll tell you what's happening right now with all of the chaos of the early outs and the RIFs. We've been on the phone with federal employees that's having to rush. They've had 3 days to make their decision on what they're going to do. And it comes to this surprise, surviving spouse benefits and what to do with it. And they're so caught off guard that we've literally had to mediate arguments on the phone, husband and wife. Because if you don't leave me surviving spouse benefit, I don't get to keep your health insurance. Well, if you're not going to leave me surviving spouse benefit, what does that mean? We've never even had time to even talk about this, and here they're faced with a decision that had to be made within 3 days. Within 3 days. That's what we're avoiding by having these webinars, by continuing to educate our federal workers out there, our postal employees, so that you're prepared if a surprise like this happens. You don't want to be one of those. And I'm telling you, I'm glad it's us. I'm glad it's us. I wouldn't want to pick anybody else out there to be on the phone with those people but us, because this I know, we truly do care, and we understand the level of stress that all of this has caused. Okay, the third surprise. And oh, by the way, the reason I call them surprises is because when I went through my retirement process, these are the things I did not feel like I was educated enough on to make good, solid decisions on. So these things surprised me, the things I did not know, the things that nobody had told me about. So surprise number 3 is all about your FEGLI, Federal Employees Group Life Insurance. Now, we are so blessed as federal and postal employees, especially when we start our careers young. It is the best coverage for death benefits that's available out there. I'm telling you, it's excellent when we're young. So, if you were like me, I was 26 years old when I got started, and I had 4 children at home, and I signed up for the max of everything, and it was super affordable when I started at 26 years old. But that changes as we age and as we progress in our career. Even as employees, the cost of that insurance goes up drastically. But you need to know what portion of the FEGLI goes up in cost. It's not just across the board that FEGLI is expensive. There's some very, very, very good benefits, and there's some free benefits with the FEGLI that you need to be aware of and understand totally how this works before you get to retirement. So, FEGLI, 4 parts. I'm just going to briefly give you a summary, and if you want more information, be sure and make that note that information on FEGLI is what you're seeking, and we'll be able to put some great reports in your hands with the FEGLI information. But the first option is basic insurance, and you have to have basic to have any of the other 3 options. And basic is simply your salary rounded up to the next 1,000 plus 2,000. That's basic. Your salary rounded up plus 2,000. Basic insurance. Now, if you're a postal employee, you're the only federal agency out there that gets that basic insurance free. All the other federal employees are paying for that benefit, basic insurance. Now, lots of things happen when you get ready to retire with the basic, and I'll come back to that. The second option on your FEGLI is option A, oftentimes called the standard option, and that's a flat 10,000 death benefit, and it's extremely affordable. When I was 26, I paid less than $1 per pay period for option A, but it continues to go up somewhat throughout our career. The most you'll ever pay as a career employee for option A is $6 a pay period. And then in retirement, the most you'll ever pay for it is $13 a month. But once again, it's what happens once you retire. I'll come back to that when I talk about retirement. The third option is the big one. This is where you get your biggest bang for your buck, and that's option B, where you can select up to 5 times your salary. Now, if you select 1 times your salary, 3 times your salary, you can go anywhere from 1 to 5 times your salary. This is where you get the bulk of your death benefit, and it's especially important, and it was actually created for us when we're young, raising a family, and the intent for that was to be some income replacement for us. We're young, we're working, we're raising a family, and something happens, it's intended to be income replacement type insurance for us. It was never intended, nor do they intend, for you to keep option B in retirement. And once again, we'll come back and talk about that as I talk about retirement benefits and your FEGLI. The fourth option is family coverage. Family coverage comes in units. So for the kids, it's $2,500 per unit, and for spouses, it's $5,000 per unit. So you can select up to anywhere from 1 to 5 units of family coverage. Option C, family coverage. So if you have 5 units on children, you've got $12,500 in death benefit on your kids. If you've got 5 units of family coverage on your spouse, you've got $25,000 in death benefit on your spouse. So now that I've just briefly talked about what are the options, how do they work, let's talk about what happens with those options when you get ready to retire. You've got your paperwork out in front of you, and you've got to make your decisions. The first decision is, do you want basic insurance in retirement? It depends on your age, what it's going to cost. It depends on whether or not you're a postal employee. Postal employees gets that free while they're employed, but if they're below the age of 65 when they're retiring, they'll have to pick up a cost of the basic insurance. Up until the time, all federal, all postal employees at age 65 has an option that could give them that basic insurance free, but it's a reduced amount of death benefit as you continue to age. So first of all, you're able to select, I want to keep all of my basic and I'll just keep paying for all of it. The price goes up substantially in retirement, so you need to know what that monthly amount is if you're going to keep it all. Or you can elect half of it. I want to keep half of my basic insurance. Remember, basic insurance is my salary, rounded up to the next 1,000 plus 2,000. But the option that is selected the most is the 75% reduction. That is that base amount that we talked about at the age of 65 becomes free if you select the 75% reduction option. I turned 65. I'm no longer having anything withheld from my pension for that basic insurance, and the death benefit starts reducing 2% per month until I have 1/4 of it left. But that 1/4 is free and it lasts until the day I die. So that's basic. And remember, you have to have basic before you can choose the other options. Well, that 75% reduction is the same thing that happens to option A, that standard insurance, the $10,000 death benefit. What I said you'd only be paying at the highest $13 a month for in retirement. When you turn 65, that standard option is free, whether you're a federal employee or a postal employee, and then the $10,000 death benefit reduces 2% per month until it reaches $2,500, 1/4 of it. And then that $2,500 stays as free death benefit for you for the rest of your life. It's option B that gets super expensive. That goes up every 5th year. So you're going to see a big increase in option B at age 50 while you're working, or when you're retired, you're going to see a huge increase at 55. It'll almost double at 55, and then it will go up substantially at 60, and then by the time you're 80, they literally have priced option B to where very few people keep it beyond the age of 80. It's not cost effective at all. In fact, many cases that I see, the cost of option B in retirement is oftentimes more than what their whole pension is going to be. So you need to know these things. And we can give you a FEGLI report that will spell out all of those price increases from whatever age you're at retirement all the way through 80. So there's no guessing. We don't want you to have to guess about that. And then option C also will have a slight increase in retirement. This is where it's family coverage on your dependent children if you have them at home, or on your spouse. Now, I continue to see people all the time in my office that has no dependent children at all, and they're either divorced or maybe widow or widowed, and they're still paying for option C when there's no coverage there. There's no one to cover. So make sure that you know what you're paying for in the deducts off of your paycheck. But option C oftentimes is very affordable to keep into retirement. Having that report in your hand that will tell you specifically how much that insurance is going to cost, not just at retirement. See, your agency will give you a report that'll show you the cost of insurance at retirement, but they're not going to give you a report that's going to show you what it is every 5 years leading all the way out to age 80. We'll do that for you. So that's one reason why you want to fill out the Roadmap to Success link on your screen at the end of this webinar. Okay, so that's our FEGLI. That's the 4 options, how it works while you're working, and that's how it works after you retire. Oh boy, we're coming up on surprise number 4. One of my favorites, or not. It used to be one of my favorites. It really did, because once again, I'm a FERS retiree. I get a pension from the same place you're going to get your pension from. Federal Employee Health Benefits. Postal Service health benefits. It's just been recently that we even have the 2 categories. Postal Service employees are covered by a different plan than what Federal Employee Health Benefits cover for federal employees. They have the Postal Service Health Benefit Plan. And oh my goodness, it changed everything. Everything. I could go on and on. Relax, I'm not going to. But I could. I could go on and on about Postal Service health benefit plans, what postal reform did, and then I would tell you federal employees, oh, hold on, you're sitting there thinking, what's that got to do with me? You better be listening, because it has everything to do with you. So we get past what's going on now. Get ready. Let's see what they do with the Federal Employee Health Benefit Plan. You better be watching what they did with the Postal Service Health Benefit Plan to get some clues on what you might expect in your retirement when you retire from federal service. And overall, probably what I want to say the most is staying educated. And there's 3 words that's going to actually lead me to the next surprise, surprise number 5, which is Medicare. 3 words that I'll pick up again in the next surprise, but it's integration with Medicare. Postal Service Health Benefit Plans is all about integrating retirees' Postal Service Health Benefit Plan with Medicare, integrating with Medicare. Federal employees, watch, beware, and learn, because you're going to need this information. Even if they don't make changes to the Federal Employee Health Benefit Plan to inform you that you're integrating with Medicare, the cost alone is going to cause you to need to sit up, pay attention to what's going on in the Medicare world to integrate with your federal benefits. Now, we specialize in those kind of things at Federal Employee Benefit Coordinators because, once again, most of us are retired federal employees ourselves. We've got well over 100 years of experience between us in dealing with the benefits that we all want and need so desperately in our retirement. So, Federal Employee Group Life Insurance was that surprise. This one is all about your health insurance and how that works in retirement. Okay, now we just talked about my favorite topic, which was the health insurance for federal employees. Let's talk about your favorite topic now, Medicare. Oh yeah, I know. I'm glad we're not live so you can't throw the tomatoes at me. But Medicare is one of those big surprises. You know, we lived in this little bubble. You and I, as a federal employee, we had such good health insurance. We still do have good health insurance. Our benefits are the best. Health insurance is changing. That's my big point. Health insurance is changing. We're so grateful to have it. Thank goodness we still have it. However, it's changing so much that our little bubble of being in this little safety net that I don't really have to worry about Medicare is long gone. Long gone. We all owe it to ourselves before retirement, way before we turn 65, to understand Medicare and how it does integrate with our federal benefits, most especially our federal employee health benefit plans or our Postal Service health benefit plans. Now, I mentioned before, postal employees have no option. Their Postal Service health benefit plan integrates directly with Medicare, but so does yours, federal guys, because your Medicare Part D, if you're working and you're 65, your prescription drug plan is now being covered by Medicare Part D, if you're 65 and working. If you're 65 and retired, your Medicare Part D drug coverage is what's paying for your prescriptions. That started in 2025. We have no choice in the matter. You have no choice in the matter, guys. You've got to understand what Medicare is. What is Medicare A? And, oh, you want to talk about one of my pet peeves? Don't tell me that we get Medicare A for free. No, we don't. You've been paying for that every 2 weeks on your pay stub. Look at your leave and earnings statement. You're getting charged for Medicare A all throughout your adult life. As you're working, they take out the premiums for Medicare A, which is hospitalization coverage. Medicare B is medical doctors, medical services, things of that nature, and there is an extra charge to have Medicare Part B. The two of those together, Medicare A, Medicare B, is the original Medicare, and it's designed to cover approximately 80% of your healthcare costs, except for your prescription drugs. 80%. That means there's a huge change. There's a shift when you retire and you turn 65, because Medicare A and B picking up 80% of the costs could cause you to need to make a different decision about what coverage you have to pick up the additional 20% coverage. These are things you need to know and things you need to be educated about. And above all else, once postal reform passed and they moved those postal employees into the Postal Service health benefit plans, I started telling everybody, you owe it to yourself to find a Medicare specialist, a Medicare agent that is trained in federal benefits, and have them do cost comparisons and benefit comparisons, payout comparisons for you every single year starting at age 65. Every single year. You need to have those comparisons done because it's the most rapid changing environment out there. Every year the laws change, the benefits change, the payouts change, the deductibles and copays change. You need to know that the plan that you have is, first of all, the best plan for you, the best coverage for you at the best price. And you're only going to know that through comparisons. So once again, that's something that we can do for you. It's an actual report that we can put in your hands so that you have that information. See, here at FEBC Now, our mission statement is to move you, federal and postal employee, away from retiring based on a date into retiring on solid financial information, to put together a strategic federal retirement plan so that your fears don't overtake you. So you're not so nervous and stressed out filling out the paperwork that by the stroke of a pen, you just cost you and your family a lot of money. I've seen it happen over and over and over again. I meet with hundreds of people. We have hundreds of people on these webinars asking for more information. There's a reason. There's a reason. Most all of our federal agencies have combined their human resources, contracted out human resources, eliminated local people with the information that we need. The number one source for information for you and me to get ready to retire from the federal government or the post office is our friends. Our friends. How sad is that? That is not a solid place to gather information for our retirement, because his information is not the same as mine. Their situation is not the same as ours. You need information based on your dreams, your plans, your goals, and your financial data. A strategic federal retirement plan is critical for your success and your peace of mind when you're getting ready to retire. So Medicare is huge. This is a biggie that you need solid information on. Now for the million-dollar question. That's right, the million-dollar question. If you could get the right answer every single time to this question, we'd all be rich. When's the best time for me to take my Social Security? Surprise number 6 is Social Security. FERS, civil service, how does that all work with all of that? We've had some new laws change. They got rid of the WEP, but they got rid of the GPO, that costs our civil service, not just employees and retirees, but their spouses, millions of dollars every year. They eliminated that. Yay! Some good news finally. We needed some good news, didn't we? But you need to understand how that affects your strategic retirement plan. And you need to understand the retirement systems. FERS is a 3-income stream system. OPM calls it the 3-legged stool. Civil service is a 1-income stream. Now, there's not many civil service people left out there still working, but their system is very different than the FERS system, and it's important that you understand the differences. With civil service, when it was created, they didn't pay into Social Security, nor did they draw Social Security. Now, because they got rid of the windfall elimination program and the GPO, the General Provision Offset, part of Social Security, things are a lot different now. But FERS has always been a 3-income stream system, and not many people know that. I was never told when I entered into my federal career that I had a 3-part, 3-income stream retirement system. I just thought I was working for a pension. That's what most people think. But they'll look at their reports and their agency will give them a printout and say, this is your pension. And they'll look at that and they'll say, well, there isn't any way I can retire on that. And you're right. It wasn't ever intended to be the solo income for retirement. 3 income streams. So your FERS pension is number 1. It is a pension. It's an annuity. You've been putting in and paying into that system ever since you got hired. You pay in every 2 weeks and it goes into a government-controlled annuity account. And when you start drawing in a pension, in fact, the reports that they'll show you will call it an annuity. Whether you like annuities or not, you're going to have a government-controlled annuity called your FERS pension. The second one is Social Security. So they did away with the old civil service and they slashed our pensions as FERS employees by 2/3. They slashed it. That's why it's so small by itself. And they put us into the Social Security system so that we started having Social Security withheld from our check that went into, once again, a government-controlled account that creates a government-controlled annuity for us. So when you get ready to retire, you turn 62, anywhere from 62 to 70, you have a decision to make. When do you want to draw Social Security? How does that fit into my 3-income stream retirement plan? And so Social Security, government-controlled annuity. Oh, by the way, your FERS pension is not multi-generational. There's a surviving spouse benefit if you elect it. Beyond that, nobody else gets your pension. Social Security, you've been putting into it ever since you've been an adult. Whatever job you've had, they've taken Social Security out of your check. But it's a government-controlled annuity that is also not multi-generational. In fact, you have a husband and a wife both retired drawing Social Security and one of them passes away, so does one of the Social Security checks go away as well. Now, there's details to that you need, and I'm happy to discuss that with you one-on-one. And then the 3rd income stream is the thrift savings plan. So when they did away with civil service, where you could, with enough years of service, retire with 80% of your salary. Wow, what a retirement plan that was. Then they created the thrift savings plan, and depending on how much you put in, they'll match up to 5% of what you put in, and then you're able to put in much more than that. And 2025 actually saw some increases in the catch-up contributions that you can do as well. These are critical tax-saving decisions that you need to have a good handle on before you retire. Don't wait till you retire to plan your taxes for retirement. It's all affected by decisions you make with Social Security. Is your Social Security taxed? Depends. But overall, the answer is probably yes, depending on your situation. Taxes, Social Security, your FERS pension or your civil service, all of these things that is a part of our journey on our roadmap to success for federal retirement. So with that, we'll talk about our last surprise. Okay, all joking aside, let's talk about our favorite topic. But it's the biggest surprise of all. It's your thrift savings plan. That third income stream, that third leg, the third leg of the OPM three income stream stool that they say, the three-legged stool, thrift savings plan. You know, we just went through a big reform just a few years ago, major changes. In fact, they're still changing things about the thrift savings plan. You need to stay up to date on a regular basis, log into your TSP account, check and see what kind of changes are being made. A lot of them are good changes. Some of them not so good. For instance, you decide you want to withdraw some money from your TSP, you've got to have a financial institution in the system for 7 days before they'll let you withdraw that money if you're moving money into another financial institution. I call it working the float. I'm not sure what TSP calls it other than the 7-day waiting period. But it's important. You want to know why it's important? You ought to talk to the gentleman that was in my office not long ago. When he came in, he had already lost $4,000 and he's putting together his retirement plan, that strategic federal retirement plan, and he knew early on that the timing for that loss in his thrift savings plan was not good. And he knew he did not want that loss to continue. So, in 7 days' time, from the time he put in a financial institution to withdraw and to transfer some of his money over into, 7 days later, he lost $20,000 more dollars. Yeah, that's right. $24,000 right at retirement, just gone. No time to get it back, no time to replenish it. Retirement is there. Your timeline and thrift savings plan are critical for the decisions you're making. And then how about the theory out there that says, oh, just put it into one of those big fancy funds that'll make lots and lots of money and leave it and set it, forget it. Yeah, that's a theory. That's a practice that an awful lot of people make. Over the years, turns out pretty good overall. You can look at the returns, 20-year, 30-year return on some of those funds. Not too shabby. But what would that look like if instead you actually had a tactical plan to manage that you knew when to pull out of the risky funds and to move into safety, and then even more important than that, when to get back in when the market's moving up? How about taxation? Do you have your tax plan in place about your TSP and how that's going to work? Are Roth options? Traditional IRAs, traditional TSP accounts? All of this is part of a strategic federal retirement plan that you better not wait until it's too late. You want to be on top of these kind of things. You want to be on top of what's changing inside of the thrift savings plan program itself and how that impacts you in retirement. How accessible are your funds to you? That's going to be a big deal, especially right now. I mean, do you know what the rule of 55 is? If you're on the receiving end of a RIF notice or a VERA, you better know what that rule of 55 says about your thrift savings plan money, because it's your money and there's penalties out there and you want to avoid penalties if at all possible. So there's lots and lots and lots of information, way too much for this webinar for us to go over on the TSP and even how to navigate it, what your rights are, and then what to do with loans. Some of you out there are getting these notices and you've got loans, and I'm not happy with what TSP tells you about those loans, quite frankly. And I'll be happy to talk to you about that. But they'll tell you that you're going to be on a delinquent list, that you're going to be classified delinquent if you don't repay your loans. I'm telling you, I've got other information that you need to go along with that information. So do your research, do your homework. How about just clicking the link that's going to be at the end of this webinar that'll be a good first start for you to gather all this information that you need to put it together in this nice, neat little box called your Strategic Federal Retirement Plan. And then that's going to lead me up to some fears. I want to talk to you about what people's fears are about retirement. And I'm going to do it very briefly, but I want to talk about those fears and tell you how we can help eliminate those fears for you. We have 5 primary fears that almost everybody faces when it comes time for retirement, and that's whether you're a federal employee or you're not a federal employee. The 5 fears are, first of all, the longevity risk. We're living longer and longer. You did know that they changed the longevity tables in your FEGLI just not that long ago, because the longevity tables have lengthened once again. They have us living longer and longer because of the health care that we get over here in America. That's a good thing, right? Well, it's a good thing if you've got a good strategic retirement plan in place, because the biggest fear of all about retirement is, what if I run out of money? What if I run out of money? The longevity risk. The next one is the forms and the paperwork. Every day I speak to somebody that needs help with the paperwork or the GRB or their online program that they're using to fill out retirement paperwork to retire from the federal government. It's not easy. And I tell people all the time, they've got some trick questions, what I call trick questions. If they'd just update the questions, I'd be out of a job. You wouldn't need me. But you want to make sure you understand what the questions are, what it implies, and how it impacts your financial future when you're filling out those forms. And we help you do that. The third one is, what if I don't have enough income in retirement? And how do I know if I've got enough income for retirement? I mean, it's one thing to retire on September the 30th. I've got enough money on that day, but what about 5 years out, 10 years out, 20 years out? I mean, can you imagine being in your late 80s, early 90s, and then all of a sudden you've run out of money? Ooh. You got to know that you have a plan in place to the extent that we can to plan for your future in retirement. It's not just a date. It's not just a date. The next one is the fear of Medicare, Social Security, taxation, all the decisions around those 3 topics. Medicare, Social Security, taxation in retirement. Major fear for people. And what creates fear? It's a lack of knowledge. When we don't know what we don't even know. And sometimes what we don't know can hurt us. It can cause us problems. So having the education necessary to help you move forward in your retirement plan on that roadmap to success is extremely important. And then the 5th one and the final one is probably the biggest one of all. What if I have a health crisis that absolutely empties out all of my retirement savings? What then? What then? Well, there's a lot of answers to that. There's a lot of options to that. There's a lot of education to just that one there alone. That's worth a phone call. That's worth a visit. So we're happy to help with those kind of things, to help eliminate your fears, to put your foot on solid ground as you travel down that road towards your retirement, off into the sunset, our golden years. Supposed to be the best time of our life, not the most stressful. Even with VERAs and RIFs and deferred resignation programs, these brand new things happening, you can minimize the fear and feel like you've got a solid footing on the ground to get started in this process. That's why we're here to help. And hey, by the way, when you click that button to start your roadmap to success, it gets you a free ebook of my brand new updated 7 Surprises of Federal Retirement. Would love to put that in your hands. Your guide to eliminate fear and stress in retirement. So where do we go from here? Now that you've heard this webinar, you've taken your notes, where do we go from there? Well, how about put the book in your hand? How about you've got a reference material in your hand that'll help guide you towards retirement? It's called the 7 Steps of Federal Retirement, your guide to a worry-free retirement. that's available to you just by clicking the button that's on your screen right now. Now, when you click that button, that is a button to your roadmap for success. It's going to take you to just a few questions. You can fill this out in a couple of minutes. It's not going to ask any invasive questions. It's not going to make you give a Social Security number, nothing like that. But it is going to make you stop and think about exactly what you need for a federal retirement plan, and it'll give us the information you're looking for when it comes time for us to talk. Okay, so bottom line, how about that? Everybody likes the bottom line. Here's the bottom line. Never, ever give up. Never give up. I know a lot of things are happening that's outside of your control. Every week I'm talking to dozens and dozens of people that feel like all of the control for their destiny, for their career, for their retirement got snatched away from them. This is your opportunity to put yourself back in the driver's seat. Never, ever give up. There's always hope. There's always hope. The best is yet to come. Believe that. Believe that with everything that's in you. It doesn't matter what it looks like today. It matters that you take the tiger by the tail and you move forward and you control your destiny and you make the decisions that's best for you and your family. And we're here to help. We're here to come alongside of you, to lock arms with you, to give you the information you need to make the best decisions possible for your future. And we're happy to do that with you. So never, ever give up.